Sorry, I was playing with my paintbrushes. Hi, I'm Amanda, and I'm going to be doing some painting today here at Battleground Games and Hobbies in Abington, Massachusetts. We are a gaming and hobby store just outside of Boston. We have 3 locations, one here in Abington, one further south in Norton near the Xfinity Center, and one up north in Saugus on Route 1 near the Fuddruckers, and which is just fun to say. I'm painting here today, 1, because Abington's the closest store to me, and 2, because we have the streaming rig here, and all my paints are here. Well, all the paints I use are here. I borrow paints from a friend, and the figures that I'm working on are here. So before I get started on those, what I'm working on today is actually going to be Highlander, mostly. I am finishing up the last few details on the Dark Crystal figures, and then we'll be moving on to Highlander. Dark Crystal is what I'm working on as this year's, my contribution to this year's Extra Life event here at Battleground. We will be doing in 2 weeks' time. 2 weeks from now. From like right now. We will be doing, we'll be just getting going on our 25 hours of gaming, which is terrifying as a prospect. But 25 hours it is, because it's over daylight savings. So in the wee small hours of the morning when we're all sleep deprived and exhausted and confused anyway, it will become like 2 a.m. again, which is great. So I am going to be working on my raffle prize contribution, which is a fully painted version of the Dark Crystal board game. So I've been working on this past couple of weeks because I only get 1 day a week to really work on painting, and I only get a few hours in those days. So I decided to do this 3 weeks ago. This is my 3rd week working on it, and they're pretty much done. So the Dark Crystal board game is put out by River Horse Games, and they make gorgeous figures. The River Horse Games, their figures that they put out are just astonishingly beautifully done. They're just beautiful sculpts. They match the artwork perfectly. So, Pie! 13 months! That's a great number of months to be subbed. Thank you, friend. I don't have any audio notifications, so I have the chat up in my laptop. I remembered my laptop today. I'm very, very excited about that. So I'm going to show these off, and then I'm going to be sealing them. There are a couple of little details I want to fix, and then I'll be sealing them, and then we'll move on to Highlander. So first up is Skeksil the Chamberlain. So this is the card that comes with the game. And here's my painted figure. I'm really pleased with how my second run on him, because I fully painted my copy of the game about a year ago. So I'm actually really pleased with this one because I realized he's got these little bits on his sleeves where like his robe is actually attached at the wrist and at the elbow, and otherwise his like undergown is showing. And I didn't notice that when I painted my version of this. So I actually did notice that with this one, so made sure to paint that in on his arms. And he looks nice and dirty down at the bottom. So he's done. I even got his eyes to not look horrible, so I'm really proud of that. Next, we have Skek the Gartham Master. He's holding a sword, the sword from the Trial by Stone. In the picture, he doesn't have it in the figure. He's actually holding the Emperor's Rod. Not a euphemism. God, imagine that. Don't imagine that. Anyway, here we have him. You can see in the picture, he's got all this sort of green slime moldy stuff. Hey, Sphere Song. How's it going? Pie, I see what they're doing with Arcade Spirits. Do you follow that secondary account as well? Because, yeah, I had a feeling something would be going on because the secondary account, the Ghost Monsters chat account, was like, hey, are we ready for today? And I was like, whoo, they're going to do something today. 2 Flowers up to things. For anyone watching who is not as familiar, Insidious Pie and I are both fans of a visual novel called Arcade Spirits. It's a really great video game put out by Fiction Factory Games. And the game itself involves like you as the player character getting a job at an arcade in an alternate universe where arcades never like went out of business. Arcades are still big business. And you get a job at an arcade and you get to make friends. And it's up to you as the player what sort of person you are and whether you want to romance someone or not romance someone, and who you want to romance if you want to romance someone. They're a great variety of characters, super diverse. It's a really, really cute game, and there's no real failure, which I love. I love that like the outcomes are all just what your decisions lead you to. You have to be willing to give up to fail, which I love. I think that's really great. The thing is, one of the devs, Stefan, is a really clever guy, and he loves his in-jokes and his sort of inside knowledge. And he's got a couple of Twitter accounts going where the official Arcade Spirits Twitter does like Q&As with characters, which is really cute. But there's a secondary secret account that is the in-character chat room for some of the characters from the game, where they discuss things that will be happening, and then those things that will be happening end up being reflected in whatever's going on in the official Twitter. It's the non-traditional storytelling method of using like multiple Twitter accounts to tell a story like that is just beautiful. So beautiful. Yeah, Two Flower is immensely clever. So anyway, back to Skekung here. He's got this like slime mold growing on him because he's that sort of guy. He's the Gartham master, so he's actually wearing as part of what he has on Gartham shells, like carapaces, as part of his outfit. See, it's the Emperor's Rod. There is nothing dirty about it at all. So yeah, he is pretty much done. I actually got his right eye properly done. There was a point last week where I was like, oh man, if I keep touching it, I'm gonna mess it up. I'm gonna mess it up worse. So you can sort of see, maybe, I don't know how clearly you can see this in the art. His eyes actually have like a red pupil. So I was like, wow, I gotta make his eyes red. And I was able to. But they're so small. I'm hoping that's in focus. So I managed to get his eye red. There we go. And this eye, I managed no problem. I mean, it was annoying, but it was not really a problem. This eye, because of where this is placed, the angle going in with a brush is really difficult. So I messed his right eye up several times over, but I think I got it. I think it looks good. So he's done. Next we have Kira. Her wings are not outstretched in the figure. They are folded. She has her hood up in the figure. I'm not as pleased. I wasn't able to get the greens quite right. I wasn't able to get them quite as yellowy, but they're fine. They're fine. I got the cloak right. There, her wings folded in the back. And she is carrying Fizzgig in the figure. In the game, Fizzgig is actually a card you can carry. It's a card that you can trade back and forth between the Gelflings. I'm really pleased with the eyes on both Fizzgig and Kira there. I got this sort of little reflected light in their eyes painted in, which I'm really happy about. And finally, Jen. So there's Jen's card. So I've mentioned before, right before I painted my copy of this game, I was able to go see Dark Crystal on the big screen. It was re-released when it was remastered. And Andy and I went to watch it, and I got to really pay attention to their costumes. And the back of his sort of jacket has this wonderful ombre fringe thing going on, which is very cool. So I'm really pleased with how he came out. So yeah, there's really not much I want to. I was thinking, oh, I have like touch-ups to do. The only touch-ups I really have to do are like on the base. I want to touch that up. That's about it. So we're going to do those last little tiny touch-ups and then seal these. Thank you very much. I mimicked the color scheme of the character cards for the bases. So this sort of cream parchment color and then a dark brown. So I was really, really pleased with how that came out. My copy has a darker brown, but I wasn't as thrilled with that. It doesn't look as warm. It looks a little cold. So wasn't as thrilled about that. So we are going to do a couple of little touch-ups on the bases for whoever needs it, though I think it may be only Jen and the Chamberlain. I don't see any things that Kira needs. And, oh, he does need a couple of little things. Okay, we'll do touch-ups on the bases. We'll let them dry, and then we'll seal them. I am listening to very different music from whatever is going on in the store because I need distraction. I need sound in my ears. So I may be hopping and bopping along to something you guys can't hear. I've been listening to a band called San Fermin, and they're pretty great. A Dark Crystal themed chess set would be amazing. Who would you have as the pieces on the Gelfling side? Because obviously, like Kira and Jen, you'd need like the Mystics as your, like Kira and Jen in the King and Queen spots, I think. But then you'd need the Mystics as the Knights and the Rooks and the Bishops. And maybe Podlings as the Pawns. Whole bunch of Podlings. You'd need the Podlings, I think, as the pawns there. And I think for, I had an idea, a Sphere Song. The regular healthy Podlings as the pawns on, like, the good side, on the Gelfling side, and the sad, drained Podlings as the pawns on the Skeksis side. I think that would be the way to go. So, Pi, have you not seen, like, the original movie? This isn't a judgment, this is just asking. I don't actually judge anyone for, like, not having seen a thing. There are plenty of things I haven't seen. It's just me being a cranky old lady. None of it. We should watch the original Dark Crystal movie. It's gorgeous. Aw, thank you, Song. So what is up with you lovely people today? I'm painting, so you know what's up with me. You know what I'm doing. I got my hair did. Went and got my hair done. All right, they gotta dry. Doing an ass ton of laundry pie. It's fair. I need to do an ass ton of laundry myself. But I hate the laundry machines in my building, and going over to my mom's means time, so haven't done it. I hope it will delight you to know that Clara climbed under the covers with me this morning and was adorable. She's been very nervous the past couple of days because we had a leak under our sink, and our landlord came over with a plumber to deal with it. And our landlord is he's a bigger guy, and I'm assuming that the plumber was wearing work boots, and our landlord wears work boots, and Clara gets very scared around men who walk heavy. It's just where she gets it's one of the things that makes her very nervous. And so we did have to let them be in while we weren't home, and she's been very nervous about that. So I don't blame her. Totally reasonable for her to be nervous about that stuff. So let's talk about Highlander. I'm pretty sure they're done. The base game. She's been super cuddly, and that's actually one thing about her being nervous, is that it makes her very clingy. I got home on Thursday, and she did not want to leave my side. Followed me through the apartment, was right at my hip when I was standing by the bed. She wanted to be pressed right up against my hip. When I got changed out of my work clothes, she was right at me every time. I'd move, go take my shirt off and switch my shirt out, and she was underhand on the bed. So yeah, she's super clingy when she gets nervous, which on one hand I feel bad that she was that nervous. On the other hand, at least I know that she feels like we are the safe place to be when she is nervous. That if she's freaked out about something, we're the place she comes to, is one of us, and that we are safe and we will keep her safe, and that we're her safety net. And that feels very gratifying to know that she thinks that. So we're going to go ahead and seal these. These are the figures from the base game. We're going to seal those up. When we're done sealing those, these should be dry, and I can seal up Dark Crystal. And then we're going to get started painting these, which is the expansion to the Highlander board game. My version is already painted and sealed. The base game has a whole bunch of characters. The expansion is all the other lifetimes of the characters in the base game. So You have Connor MacLeod of the Clan MacLeod in the base game, in his tartan. And here he is as Russell Nash, antiques dealer. Antiques dealer, not antiques stealer. Be a very different character. So yeah, the base game has Connor MacLeod of the Clan MacLeod. The expansion has Russell Nash. On the other hand, the base game has the modern day Iman Facile, the most boring man alive. Thank you. I'm really pleased with how his jeans came out. Denim's really hard to paint. And I was so proud of his jeans. And he's wearing like these white sneakers. They're ridiculous. I was actually really pleased with how his stuff all came out. So the base game has Iman Facile, modern day. The expansion has him when he was a crusader who had abandoned the Crusades. So he's covered up his shield. He's started wearing armor from other armies. So really all he has left is like his shield and his tunic. And then he's added scarves and stuff and covered up his shield. So he's not really identifiable as much as a crusader because he has abandoned them. Do I use heavy oils to get the creases? I use washes to get the creases. And I'm actually going to attempt, so one of the characters in this set is Amy Gray. She is the modern version of Namanaga Minamoto, who I am ridiculously proud of this version of. She's the modern day version, and I wanted her, I felt it was very 90s for her to have a white leather jacket. I was really, really pleased by that idea. But white's really hard to get right. So I have purchased the Citadel contrast paint in Apothecary White, which is a white contrast paint that is supposed to sort of remove most of the need for washing white. The contrast paints are supposed to be, you paint it over a base coat and it paints the highs and washes the lows all in one paint. Don't know how they do it, don't care. All I know is that I have Apothecary White, which is supposed to be what you use for a white to shade it. We'll see. We'll see. I did a test with it on my copy of Iman Facile last week. Yeah, it's an interesting thing. That is very interesting about Domestic Cat Sphere Song. One of the things that Clara does, she stands up like a meerkat. She gets very tall and wants to grab things. She's actually very funny. I work out in my living room most days, and I stretch ahead of time, and I do a stretch where I'm like on all fours and I reach out one arm and one leg, and she will grab my hand while it's outstretched and force me to pay attention to her. It's very cute. All right, let's start with Ramirez. Let's seal him. I used to use a spray sealant, and then I had a very unfortunate situation with that. I went to seal and realized after the fact that it was too dark, or not too dark, too hot that day for the spray sealant, and it had dried foggy. Which meant I had to then redo a whole bunch of stuff which was horrible. Yeah, basically, Mom, notice me. Mom, 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 I need attention. Mom, Mom, hi, I'm here too. Mom, Mom, pet me, pet me, pet me. Yeah. And she's very funny. I'll like take a water break and I'll come back and she'll be lying where I work out, like where I jog. Lying on her back, looking adorable. And I'm like, well, I guess I can take a longer break. I guess I'll pause to pay attention to my cat. But anyway, yeah, I used to use a spray sealant. After that one incident, I've decided brush on is the way to go from now on for me. I do not want to be in that position again because it was like I was painting the Starship Samurai figures for our friend John, and I was really proud of them, but they had a lot of little detail work to them and they had taken a while to finish, and I finally finished them, and then I sealed them and ruined a whole bunch of my work and had to go back over them. It was not quite a you can cry, but you got to cry and cut situation. It wasn't quite like, I'm on a deadline and I got to deal with it. But it was close. It was very frustrating. So we're not doing that.
Yes, they swapped out Mars and sank them for two new factions. But I haven't seen more.
Yeah, spray is definitely when you have a lot, but like there were a lot of the Starship Samurai figures. Like there were just a whole bunch of them. So I was like, I might as well spray these. There's a whole bunch of them. I want to get them done so that we can play with them.
He said we can go ahead and sleep.
The only thing I don't love about these figures are their feet. A whole bunch of the feet are like way smaller than they really should be, and I think it's mostly that they like ended up kind of sinking into the bases, but they end up feeling like Rob Liefeld drew the feet. Hey, Andy. They do need to make a mini-based never-ending story game. You're so right. Yeah, minis are an expensive hobby. That's actually one reason why I like doing board games, is that I'm going to buy the board games, a lot of these board games anyhow. So I might as well paint the figures that they come with. That's how I got started on mini painting, was that we had the game Talisman, and Talisman has figures for all of the playable characters, and all of the expansions have figures. And I said I would like to learn how to paint, and I think the Talisman figures are the perfect way to do it, because they're very low risk, shall we say. Like, if I mess them up, they're mine, and I mess one up, it doesn't mess up the whole game. Like, so one is ugly. Who cares? The very first ones I did were the Toad figures. So I got to learn how to dry brush and highlight and all of that. But it didn't matter if they were ugly, because they're toads. They're not meant to be like these gorgeously, fantastically detailed figures. That was never the point of them.
Where's the rest of the gang tonight? Quitting on us? August 6th. And Riley has like 7 siblings, so I'm assuming something family related. Oh. I couldn't even tell you what it is. Well, 7, I'm sure it's every other weekend, right? Yeah, pretty much, yeah. Trying to keep up with how many nephews and nieces he has. It's just a full-time job. I think it depends on the occasion.
It's fair. You can do that. Yeah, that's fair. Because I didn't even. Oh, I get it. I totally respect compliment. I'm like, oh my god.
So actually,
For doing the figures first, we'll do the bases after, so that I can hold them by the figures to get the bases done.
All right, keyboard folks, I have the bearings here. Yeah. When you're ready, I'll start timers. Hold on. Tournament software is not perfect. This is Jeff Pavlov versus Yacht. No.
Yeah, no, it's the last part of my name.
Oh yeah, it was
No, this is the best place so far that I've seen. Yeah. It's okay. In the south or the north? North, yeah. And you know, when the game first came out, they were going to say the Saugus location. Yeah, we're yeah.
I know it's super exciting to watch me seal things. I'll be done soon.
Probably. They didn't manage it as well as Abington. No, it's crazy. And I think it's just community. Yeah. Yeah, we've been thinking about trying again. I like a lot of the West. Like, I really don't have time. You know, I can set aside, you know, place and time. I don't have time to sit around. Yeah. That's what this is great. There you go. All right. Yeah.
That is true. You do get to see them done. I always feel that like the figures go from looking perfectly fine unpainted to then looking intensely ugly when you like have the base coats on but nothing else, to looking good again once the detail work is done.
I can share one. Feel like 5 or 1. 1. First. 7. You play 1.
I'll keep this. Yeah.
All right, that's them sealed. Now for dark crystal. And then we'll actually start working on some of those. These are going to need significantly more sealer. The other trick with doing this by hand is that you need to make sure that you're getting everywhere.
No, I've suspended that temporarily. So Chris is having a hard time making it. I'm trying to make time for him. Yeah, he's having a hard time with it. So he feels really bad about canceling all the time.
Yeah, if I had to pick an elf, it would be like a D&D elf.
Supposedly sometime in January. But then he may be deploying shortly after that.
And what I'm going to each player play this. Each player discards their gun and replaces their hand at the end of their turn. That's what I already thought. Oh, there's no one? Yeah. That doesn't actually.
At the code.
So I'm going to play Grove Keeper.
So where now? Oh, yeah, yeah. Tell me about
Dusk
this.
Witch. One, it's a mega card. She's elusive. One creatures and to play ready.
In 7 days?
That's right. But neighboring creature +1.
No, but you know those maps are randomly generated. Oh, are they? Yeah. There's a Navaganze map in Battle in standard.
Yeah.
No. That's why I came here already. Yeah. You said that, I'm like, how did you get on the server? It's like, it's been shut down for 3 days.
You're on your.
Oh, he has noodles down there. Ah. Thank you.
So I'm gonna
Hey, go ahead. Okay. You first friendly creature.
The Gartham Laster. Yeah.
Blinding Light. Four Shadows.
Flamewake Shaman, War Grumpus, and Grok. Then I'll play Relentless Assault, ready to fight 3 different friendly creatures one at a time. Nothing to fight. So I will
Play There's a Joy and new creatures that have Reap.
Reap, which I assume.
Doesn't. Reap. Actually, yeah, they have Reap. I'm gonna play this. It gives Lion Version.
I have 2 cards in hand, so 1, 2, 3, 4. Go ahead. I'm going to choose Rob Armies. Croak will fight Helperbot. I take 1 damage, he dies, you lose an ember. Or Grumpus will read it. Which ready's Croak? Croak will catch the and then Flameweight Shaman will read. Check.
Omega. Turn.
I draw nothing for this play.
My nails, I had a couple of people mention butterscotch in relation to my nails this week, which is more appealing to me than pumpkin. I think they look more butterscotch in person and maybe more pumpkin on camera. So we don't really do it here, like it's not like as common as it is a little further north of us. I would say like Maine and New Hampshire. Vermont, definitely. Vermont is like a big maple syrup area. But I have had it and I have done it. But I did it while visiting family friends in New Hampshire. We went to visit a maple syrup farm and see the vats of maple syrup in progress and taste it at various stages. And it's like not actually that syrupy.
So he has 1
And then we made maple candy. Yeah, it's definitely done around here. It's just not quite as like, this is definitely going to be a part of your childhood around here. It was great. So when I was a kid, I went to a private school that had different vacations than the public schools. I had 2 weeks in March, and as opposed to a week in April and a week in February, like most of the public schools do in this area. And one year, family friends who had a small farm up in New Hampshire, in rural New Hampshire, offered to have me stay for most of a week during my spring vacation because I was young and my mother taught at a public school and couldn't take off, 2 weeks in March to take care of me. And her vacation wasn't at the same time. So I went up to New Hampshire and stayed with our family friends in New Hampshire on their farm for the better part of a week. And their kids were still in school, and they had 2 kids, one who was my age and one who was a year younger. And they happened to have a field trip to a maple syrup factory, like farm, and then the sort of plant attached to the farm that made the syrup. And they invited me to come along, so I went along. And it was great. It was great fun. They were very good friends. They had some rough things happen later on. The father of the family passed away when I was in high school, and the family sort of scattered a bit once the sons were out of school. Yeah, sad situation. I miss them. They were great people. The father and the family and my dad were very close. They were very good friends. I think it hit my dad really hard. And the farm in New Hampshire was definitely the father's passion project. He was a lawyer, and he would spend a chunk of time down in Boston and then go back up to New Hampshire to take care of the farm on the weekends. I have very fond memories of going up there for holidays. We would go up there for, I need to touch up his base before I seal his base up. Very fond memories of going up there for New Year's. That farm is how I know that geese are assholes. I mean, we all know that geese are assholes. That's their thing. That's what they do. But I know firsthand that geese are assholes, and I know that because I stayed on a farm with a bunch of geese. The farm had a couple of pigs, a flock of sheep, a flock of sheep, a flock of geese, a flock of sheep, a couple of pigs, some rabbits, chickens, quail, 2 beehives, a huge garden, and a couple of poodles. And the poodles were the farm dogs. Susan and Angus, the farm poodles. And they were great. They would come to our rescue if the geese cornered us. Because the geese had free roam, free reign on the farm. And I had free reign on the farm. The kids all had free reign. We could run anywhere we wanted within reason. Just couldn't go in. We weren't allowed in the sheep pen because the sheep would knock you over. The rams would knock you over. So we weren't allowed in there. And they would knock you over. So we weren't really allowed to go in the sheep pen. And they had the sheep pen had an electric fence. Same for the pigs, because pigs, real farm pigs, are huge, dinner table sized animals. and we were not allowed to go in the pig pen. That was off limits for the kids. But we were allowed to go like in the hen house, and we were allowed to go visit the rabbits, and we could run anywhere we wanted basically on the property, aside from inside the pens. Yeah, pigs are so big. Fully grown hogs are just ridiculously large. This is why pigs that go like feral are terrifying. And I think people who have never encountered like an actual full-grown pig, who've only ever seen pictures and not seen the scale, are like, oh, wild pigs, haha. No, they're really scary, because anything that's wild, that's that large and gives so few fucks, yeah, because guaranteed pigs do not care about like puny mortals. So, fun story about the pigs on this farm. Time for stories. It's story time. So, the way the farm was laid out, you had the farmhouse, and there had been an old barn that they had actually converted and attached to the house as an extension of the house. And it was this giant living room and the parents' bedroom over it. And then there was the sort of a little farm road, like a path that went down from the house, and there was a like greenhouse attached to the house. It was just a little like kitchen greenhouse like off the kitchen. But then there was a little like dirt road sort of thing that went from the house along the garden on your left. The hen house was on your right, then the rabbit hutches, then like a shed, then the barn at the far end. And the barn at the far end was where the pigs lived. And then on the other side of the garden to your left, going down the road, was the sheep pen. And the sheep pen was very big. And then there was a meadow out on the other side. Gotta let him sit for a little bit, because I didn't realize his base hadn't been cleaned up. Oh yeah, I would not go in a pig pen unless like I really knew what I was doing and maybe had a stick. So the pig pen had an electrified fence. We were not allowed. The kids were not allowed inside there. But we the pig pen was the furthest part from the farm, basically. Like, the pig pen was the furthest out you went from the farmhouse. And so it was always like your last stop to like feed the animals was hitting the pig pen. And which meant that like anything that happened way out there, you couldn't really hear very well from the farmhouse. And the road that they lived on also had several other small farms. The road that they were on had like other houses, and they were pretty far away from each other. Like I said, this is rural New Hampshire. We're talking like you wander into the woods and find a broken down truck. There's no road nearby. How'd it get there? Who knows? It's New England. That's how things go. That's just how it is. So they got word from some of their neighbors that a fox had hit one of the other houses on the road and stolen some hens. And the folks up in that area, a lot of them were like my family friends in that their farms were very much like to supplement their incomes. They weren't because they needed the farm, but certainly, you know, selling the eggs or selling off a chicken or two at the end of the season, or who weren't laying. That was a way to get a little extra money. That was like additional income. And you did it because you used the eggs yourself, or because you were keeping goats to shear them and you would end up with their wool, or same for sheep. So the farms were like functional, but we're not talking big farms that were like money makers. We're talking, we keep chickens, or we keep bees, or we keep ducks, or whatever, because we sell stuff at the farmer's market and it supplements our other jobs, sort of deal. But like losing a couple of chickens, that's a big deal. That's annoying. That's really frustrating. You know, you were expecting those chickens to either keep giving you eggs, or you were expecting to be able to like get some money out of them by selling them, or having them for dinner. Because this is where baby Amanda learned that food comes from somewhere. Meat used to be alive, and if you're going to eat it, you better be okay with that. So I learned that young. And like all the piglets always had names like pork chop and barbecue, sausage, bacon. So there was no illusions there. So they got word from one of their neighbors that a fox had hit one of the hen houses, which was annoying. So they fortified their hen house. I mean, the only way to keep a pet pig that small is just not feed it as much as you normally would. That's it. Even like pet pot-bellied pigs, they're still very big. So anyway, did I do the bottom? No, I didn't. They got word that a fox had hit one of the houses. And then a couple of days later, one of the other houses on the street, same thing. Everyone on the street was like fortifying their hen houses or whatever barns they had, leaving the dogs out at night, you know. And they hadn't hit my family friends, but they were sort of at the end of the road, and they kind of, you know, figured it'll hit us sooner or later. And then one morning they went down to feed the pigs, and the pigs are named George and Martha. And when Martha got up, the father of the family, Henry, noticed something was under Martha. Martha had been lying on something. And they slept outside. There was a barn, and she had piglets in the barn, but they didn't sleep in the barn. They slept just outside it. And there was something under where Martha had been sleeping. So Henry got in the pen and went to see what was under Martha, and it was a flattened fox. Just flat, squished. Martha, we do not know to this day whether Martha intentionally like body slammed it and crushed it to protect the piglets, or if it was just a total coincidence and she rolled over onto it in the night. Don't know. They took it into town, had it taxidermied. I had it stuffed, sold it. It's one of my favorite stories. Totally true. Like, that actually happened. So I never got to see the fox. I never got to go up and visit and see the fox after it happened. But yeah, my parents checked with them on it, and they were like, yeah, it's real. This was like in the days before smartphones, so they couldn't just snap us a photo and email it. But yeah, they went and had it stuffed. So yeah, that is one of my favorite farm stories. I tell that story to children because children love gross out stuff, and a giant hog squishing a fox is definitely gross out. and they think it's hilarious. It sort of tells them something. The world can be a dangerous place. There's a moral to that story. There we go. So yeah, I do farms and like farm animals as a theme every once in a while for story time. And I'll be like, okay guys, I'm gonna tell you a true story. Buckle up. No, hugging a goose wouldn't work very well. Geese are not huggable animals. So I don't actually have that many goose stories from the farm. Mostly it was like us kids are running around the farm and we turn a corner and there are a bunch of geese and we have to like call the dogs to come get them away from us. I do have a goose story or a geese story from grad school, oddly enough. I went to Simmons for grad school. I went to their library science graduate program. And Simmons College is in Boston in the Fens, which is where Fenway gets its name. And the Fens are literally, they're like swamp area. It's like the Fens are basically like a series of streams and sort of swampy, marshy area. And it's very marshy, it's very wet, and there's a whole lot of like cattails and little bodies of water and stuff. And Simmons is right out near the Fens. And there's another school nearby, near Simmons, that you pass by. I think it's the Mass Institute of Art. On your way between the Museum of Fine Arts T-stop, like trolley stop, and the Simmons campus. And there is a giant lawn in front of that area, and Canada geese like to hang out on that lawn. They love that lawn. I'm sure there's lots of good eating in that lawn. But eventually they want to go back to the stream or the pond or wherever they hang out in nearby. Well, doing so means crossing streets. Yeah. So they've got to get across the street, and geese do not care about like crosswalks or waiting for a walk signal. So I was walking to class and noticed that like traffic was super backed up as I was walking down the road. I was like, man, I wonder what's going on that like traffic is so backed up. I'm glad I'm not like driving in. So I as I approached the lawn, I realized what was happening. which was that this enormous gaggle of geese had decided it was time to go back to the pond. And they were crossing the street single file. And there had to be a good 80 or 90 of them all told, between like the ones that were still on my side of the street and the ones that had already crossed. But they were going across single file. And the rest of the geese that like weren't crossing yet were just milling around on one side of the sidewalk waiting their turns. And so it was taking forever for them to get across the street, and you couldn't just drive, you're gonna hit them. They're not getting out of your way. And there was a big SUV waiting to like go. They had stopped like right in front of it, basically. And as I approached, the guy behind the wheel was getting very impatient, which I understand, and honked at the geese. He goes, honk! And the geese in front of him sort of stopped and ruffled their wings and honked right back and just kept walking. I walked around him.
Yeah, I had a quick start, but I lost some steam about the way. Well, it's I got all that ember to start and you just hold it, so yeah.
There we go. I just thought that was hilarious. It's like, man, geese just do not care. So like when the Untitled Goose Game came out, I was like, I don't know. I've had life experiences with geese. I don't know if I need to play as one. Yeah, they want to get to the Charles. They want to get home. They got goose things to do. Like pooping and honking and being a nuisance.
Yeah. Generally this goes pretty quick, so usually the skills that protracted fight. Unless you're playing up. Now that's true.
Alrighty. Sealant is done. Done. That's right, you have moose up there. Yeah, you do get to be the goose. I have long said I would eat a goose out of spite. Given the opportunity, I have not had an opportunity to have goose. You'd think. At 40 years old, I would have had an opportunity to eat goose at some point in my life. And yet, here I am, gooseless. Very sad. Yeah, I've known people who go hunting, like in New England. I never got to have any venison. My parents had a neighbor at one point down in Falmouth who hunted deer, and he did offer them venison, and my parents didn't take it. Oh well. How was pheasant? Was that good? Was it real gamey? You've had moose, and it was delicious. Excellent. Oh, I did not shake that enough. You've had duck and rabbit, but no goose. I've never had, like, I just haven't really had a chance to have many game animals. Haven't been eating at the right restaurants, I guess.
You might be the blank space. They did the last round to me too. I was YATT.
Okay.
I guess I got five.
Where it says Joe has a five.
Hold on.
You did that too?
That's not there.
You give them right to echo that, I'm gonna
Hey, Andrew.
Yeah.
Am I playing Justin?
I'm going to make this message for
This looks the same,
Because I'm on
hopefully more opaque.
Okay, he's playing you. Okay.
Better, not perfect though. Actually, do we want to start with Russell, or do we actually want to start with Amy and see if we can get those contrast paints, that white contrast paint, to work? I'll have to, so I primed all these at the same time, so they're all primed in black, which means I've got to put a base coat on her, a white base coat on her, before I use the contrast paint, because it won't work over black. Like, it will, but it won't. Got to make sure to get his butt covered. So this fool here, Russell Nash, wears white sneakers for the final fight. Like, legit, I looked up a ton of reference photos when I first did my figures. And white kicks. He's like running around in a warehouse. I guess he didn't really get, like, I don't know, does he like prepare for the fight with the Kurgan, or does the Kurgan surprise him? Can't remember. I feel like, dude, you gotta have better shoes for these things. Or I doubt those things were pristine white when you were done, buddy. I have had alligator, and I've had shark. Bear. I would not touch snake. Can't do it. Mm-mm. That's not going to happen in my... No, no. Mm-mm. Nope, that's my... I need to find my contrast paint.
I'm still not sure if it's better to go first or second.
I need to get myself a box for the paints that I've bought. There it is. Didn't settle too much, that's good. So this is the contrast paint I was talking about. He wasn't shoe shopping in preparation for this fight? No, not really. So this is the contrast paint. And you can see it sort of, it did settle a bit. You can see it's got like a lighter pigment and a dark sort of wash to it. I'm not missing out, skipping snake. Good. This does require a fair amount of shaking, so I'm getting a lot of shaking in. I think we are going to start with Amy. I'm going to keep going back to that. So my version of this figure looks like this. And I think I'm actually going to use the kimono on the, yeah, she's pretty dry, as inspiration. And I'm actually going to give her, I'm still going to do like the white leather jacket, but we're going to go with a darker dress. We're going to do like the darker charcoal. And we'll do like silver leggings, maybe coppery leggings or gold. We'll do like a lighter gray for leggings. Because I want her to match. Actually, I really do like how I ended up doing this. We'll do the leggings a little differently, but I think the dress came out quite nicely. She doesn't actually have leggings molded in, but I liked it better than just having, I don't like her just having bare legs. It's the slit on her skirt comes up way too high, and it veers into some weird stereotypical territory. So I'm gonna crunch into my mic for a moment. I'm trying this Chex Mix, Savory Chex Mix, bold party blend. It's bold. It's not that bold. It's not bad though. It's perfectly decent. Crunch, crunch, crunch. I kind of want to figure out a way to do the ombre effect on her dress as if she's like made a dress out of her kimono. Can I pull that off? Can I do it? Do we think I have the skills to make such a thing happen? Yes, we do. I appreciate your confidence in me, Pi. I have access to witchcraft? Maybe. So we are using Misty Gray and Stormy Gray. Thank you, Pi, for those bits. And look, bonus bits. Thank you. This actually needs to be a darker gray, but we'll use this as a base. Sorry, I'm not painting on camera.
And then I'll play Life for Life. Sacrifice a creature. It's going to 6 damage to a creature. I'll sacrifice Brand Mode. So I play
Other creatures put into the creature and play like
execute on. I'm all set.
Terminator bits are a thing, or why they give bonuses. The new Terminator movie is coming out on like Halloween. So they've probably made like a deal with Twitch to promote or something.
And I'll play Sheriff. And play one creature. I play Wild Whirlpool. Draw one. I play 3. Do I have a card on my deck, which is Mars first. And play use from Mars from Abington. Have some fun with her. Why is it 7? That only affects you if it's your opponent's piece.
You get off for all that.
well, as you conceded.
Yeah.
I mean, that was my hand.
I have 3 creatures that cost like.
Yeah, you probably have like a hand or something in there. You probably could go.
But like, if you just like kind of like whatever else those are, and just try to
Yeah, the order that
Oh wait, no, it doesn't work.
I'll choose Display.
Yeah.
I'll play Display Activate. Gain 1 spin you are. As Link will do 2 damage.
That's what you do with this stuff.
I need support. Then I'll play Dodger. And then draw out.
Like basically
I'm doing well. I don't get some credit.
Now I'm going to 2, 4, 6,
That's more like it.
I'm doing it this way. I'm playing Mars. I'm playing Mars Big Sucker. Okay. So I gain 4 for that. I'll play Sucker Punch. 1 for each. Doesn't damage. Enemy non-Mars creature touches 1 of them. And then I will play Squash. Damage. Non-Mars enemy creature captures 1 from their own.
A lot of little turns in this.
2. That's Mars. Sorry, I don't have that. That's not Mars. Check. Yeah, it's Mars. Non-Mars. Yeah. What does he do? Your piece costs +1, and he has a counter.
Okay. Yeah. I can't wait to win.
concentration unless we deal 2 damage to a creature. I'll take 2 much.
I will play basic.
Then I will play.
What do you think?
That's it for me.
Yeah, the butt unfortunately has a couple of like creases that are making the wet brushing really difficult. Like there's actually a lot, like a molded line here. So it's creating a border that I don't want. I think I'm actually not going to go as light on the back. I'm going to leave it darker on the back because I want to have some of the willow leaves. So we'll just let it sort of fade in here. And leave that like that. And we'll have a couple of the willow branches like on her hip, sort of here. And maybe a couple in there. Yeah, I think that looks better to have it only sort of come around to here. Well, thank you for hanging out, Sphere Song, and this has been lovely. It's always lovely to have you hang out. I hope being productive goes well. Thank you. You have a lovely rest of your day, I hope.
A little bit. I haven't seen a lot of like more recent releases. I think that the Federation type faction, I forget the name of it. I think it looks interesting. I think it's one of those combination things that cards don't look good on the surface, but once you really start playing with them, yeah. I'm interested to start getting some tournaments like that too. I think that's the thing is community gets invigorated with other set releases because they want to see the cards and see how everything plays. So I think when the new one drops, you'll see more money here. Plus, we should have sanctions. I don't know. Well, we did that right after Gen Con.
What is this I am listening to? This is bizarre.
So hopefully it continues to kind of roll in that direction, particularly because people are getting kind of disillusioned with Magic for some of the decisions made by. Oh, really? Yeah. Well, they stopped providing priority to small shops. Now they're providing all of their boxes to big box stores like Walmart and Target, and anything that's left over staying to the stores like this. It was a really controversial decision, and it's closing little gaming shops all across the country. Yeah. Battlegrounds is one of the few stores that they've really spread their interest in Highlander around a lot of games. So they feel it, but not as seriously as some of like little card shops. Like I've seen 3 or 4 close in the past 2 months. Yeah, it's really rough because finding good gaming stores is hard enough as it is.
I'm in play Untamed, so we'll start with Lightfoot. If your opponent played 3 or more in their previous
The
turn.
theory is that Wizards of the Coast may be gearing up to try and sell Magic. They may be trying to sell it off someplace or trying to make it a little more profitable. Because a lot of the profit that's made off of some games doesn't come back to Wizards of the Coast. And then when they're buying Target, all that money goes back to them. So the theory is that they're trying to make themselves more profitable.
What's the difference in terms of
Well, Target doesn't resell cards. So if they only provide their cards like this like that, then the card is just a resell cards. So they prop up. That's the theory. So who knows what's actually going to be the way. Yeah.
They'll spend, $300 on
Well, they rent the back room here about twice a month because we love having this space. So up here, there's a back room right in the corner.
Oh, this one.
It's got a private back room, it's a TV back there. So when we rent it, we play things like Jackbox, or we're going to do something that takes up like 2 tables for the space. There's like a 12-foot table around that. So I keep telling them, they were originally going to put a second floor in there. You can see a lot of spots for it. And I keep telling them, you really got to put a second floor in and get more of this private rooms because people use it.
As long as they're left up.
Yeah.
Quite an investment to pay for.
Well, it's $5 a person for going to the back room, which is not bad. But it's
These guys, the schedule's my archive.
so it's getting harder.
Keeps cost 6 now.
Yeah.
Yeah, 5 is cheap. Really. One of the movies. $5, right?
And it can be like 6 hours. Yeah. So I mean, I've got the stories back there. We played like all day, like weekend buster games back there. So keep telling them they got to get more of those. Especially when we're looking at the apartments in the area that have room to entertain.
Right.
Mars.
Well, hopefully,
I'm hoping that's not the case.
I'll pass.
Thanks, man. I know some Magic players are blaming Keyforge for the current downtrend in Magic. Oh, yeah, right.
Alright, so I'm going to start with sample collection. Any return to your archive for each key your opponent has forged. So I'll take both of these. Then I'll play Eastling Marauder. Play capture 1 for each friendly Mars creature. 2 friendly Mars creatures, so I'll capture 2.
What?
Yeah, I got the expansion. That'll be out in December. Final charge.
Oh, wait, Dave, so this guy,
I don't know about Ron, because Ron lives in PA, he visits. But I think that James is going to play. He lives in Mass. We could find out the game store that's Saturday between us. Yeah, I'll find out. Jason, you got it. He's always with, also with James. He hasn't been like on. Three actually. Four, and then we just need one more person. Five. Yeah, the guy used to work on. Yeah. He lives in there. No, not he lives. Try to get him. That's fine. You got the Amber Rush going to start. But with him, it's not even small anymore. He lives at right. He had done that Adam, but yeah, this guy doesn't have a ton of camouflage. Yeah. Which is always a problem. Oh, so yeah, all. It's not nice.
I am the hunter, and I go hunt. With my last time for 6 man, 3 was good.
I like that you always get to play whatever.
Yeah. No, I have my phone for 2 things every day, but I can't.
It's part of the game, but sometimes it's not. In this game, you don't have that. The worst you get is like, oh, you've got a 2-2-2 split on your house, and you still get to play 2 cards. You have that. That's all. Monday, Tuesday. I've had games that we have to get a job. I do that with kitchen and stuff. Yeah, like 4x3 shelf. I play not. I end up with a big like too much for the minimum. But you keep new stuff.
Ooh. Probably going to work for another 15 to 20 minutes. But my eyes are starting to not want to focus on stuff this small. So I know that that's usually when it's time to call it a day. I can probably end up doing like the base coat on Connor.
And then I'm going to play on Tuesday and Thursday. I'm going back at 10:30 with plenty of an hour or so.
I'll do purple. I'll do purple leggings because the she has purple embroidery in her obi, and like the tie here is purple. I'll do a grayish purple. That's perfect. Oh, I'm glad I figured that one out.
I have these gold degrees.
Yeah. Oh,
I did the shots and I called them, but I need to give the intel and have you guys
Yeah, exactly. That's why I like anchor. Like you roam, I anchor, and then by the time that they're hitting the box sites, you can help me.
Like we'll do a gray base, but then the actual leggings are going to be. Are going to be purple.
Because when I first started playing the game, the first deck I opened, like I did terrible. And then I went back to it and I realized it was the best deck I had. Like it took me maybe 3 months to realize that this is actually good. And then I really started seeing the combinations in it and went back to the table and it hasn't lost since then. So it's been like, alright, awesome. I can see how these decks are put together.
You know why I had a great deck. It was like I think my third deck. So I was playing this and it was like I played on Crucible. So I sold it for $5. I wanted to do it.
That's the hard part. You have to, if you don't see the combination, it doesn't look good. So it takes a while to kind of figure out. That's why
I don't mind talking.
Yeah.
If you lose it a few times, it takes a while.
Right. Yeah. Especially because you can buy a box. You have so many decks. It's like I'll spend my time learning other decks.
On that.
Does Pixies and
We're going to let her dry a little bit.
It comes down to a lot though. It's like $3.
Doors of Heaven's good. Doors of Heaven actually got a lot better.
Oh, did they do an errata on it?
No, it's because now it's one of the best ways. Oh God, yeah, that's okay. Because they errated that Shadows card. Switch. They take a opponent down and like because then you have to well now because they errated it faster there's ways to stop the opponent. So and because it's very accessible. Doors of Heaven, that's the one that destroys everything from the fire. So it doesn't take any game to bring it back down to a playable level if your opponent is
I don't know if that should either A or soul, or so you get a stock.
I put one that has
like dig deeper.
Oh my gosh.
if you pull it together right, your opponent may really do really well, you stall it out, you're going to keep horse toss or whatever. All of a sudden they pass the turn with 13 ember or something.
Then you buy it.
Right, double them and say you're going to do something extra. All of a sudden they have 1 queen and I
I would cry. That'd be terrible.
Her shoes are such a horror show. Like I said, one thing I don't like about these figures is the feet.
He got that, it was before the errata for library access. So he did his whole deck like 2 or 3 times. And it was just, he just kept playing cards that gave him over and over again. So he was even tracking roll 6 on it and everything. It was just like every other action card gave him. That was fantastic.
Like that's the whole announcement. Like any trigger.
She's gonna sit.
Right now, he said what color balancing, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. It was the same thing for me.
I'll burn you.
Right.
And like, so like, when you said like, oh, fuck, you can do that. We tried like that back to the wall.
I find what's really interesting about this game in particular is because it's not about beating your opponent down through force, it's about forcing keys.
I am not going to worry about his sneakers just yet. I'll have to deal with those later. The problem is his jeans need so much like dry brushing and work. I'm going to end up messing up white sneakers if I try to do them now.
was playing with a action card, they gave me and like 6 7 turns, turn 2, turn 3, or
Right.
blue win.
Well, remember that's like that one deck that everyone hates when I play. It's the triple vault deck. I've got 3 artifacts that store Ember. So they can't be stolen or destroyed while they're on the cards. But there's only like 8 creatures on the whole deck. But there are 3 gateways to this. So I'll throw a creature down, someone throws 6 down. Cool, I'll pull up my own creature. I don't mind not having anything on the deck. Really annoying.
Blue right now or the
Well, true. Yellow is space for that. So I got 1 or 2 Ember in each one of them. So if I lose 1, alright, I lost a few Ember. It's much harder to destroy an artifact.
Power more defensive phase. And the was always right power. Oh, boy.
That one hurts. The other one that hurts is there's a relic where you just tap it to destroy it. So those are the only 2 that really have given me a lot of threat, and they don't commonly appear in very competitive decks. So when you take it to a competitive tournament, your chances of seeing are relatively low. Usually it's destroyed by something like Poltergeist, because usually money kids, you have to use the artifact first. So they have to give it an Ember and then destroy it. So usually the trade-offs are not
You were saying that I'm going to guard you or something. So what your phone is.
Yeah, I'm not should be right back.
Yeah, about 2. Oh, really? That's awesome. That's great. Yeah.
I don't own any stone blades, but to be perfectly honest, I don't think it's completely necessary.
So I was playing a deck yesterday, I was trying to make it work. So like, obviously, Stone Fortress is creatures.
I am.
With Stone Fortress is great. It's perfect chair. Random Bar is something great. It's a creature to quick with. You can use it on turn 2 as a double play. What's it buy? And then what's really good with Norton on physically do like triggers like that one. Bounce thing on top of it. I tried to do that with Random Bar.
It's 25 hours this year. That's great. Yeah.
I really wish you could bounce your own things with Power. It would. The card would actually. I think all three of them are great. It's somewhat narrow in my ears. But like the main reason why Blue Eyes is so good is because the island that they printed definitely should not be an island. Yeah, I have a couple foil.
Hi, are you still watching? Are you still there? You are. You may want to check on your Yuletide stuff, because they are down to only a handful of questions, and yours were not among them, so I'm assuming all your stuff got approved. But you might want to check, just to make sure.
I heard a lot of people theorizing the state of the I think it's good. I think it's okay. Like, but the language is just insane because it's so Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Also, you have a fucker, less rounds you cards, then you wipe your opponent out. Your opponent plays a spell. I crit you, counting your spell, bounce my land, replay my land, redraw the credit. Go. It's disgusting. The fact that you can. Yeah, you can fetch it, put a terminus on top of your deck, miracle the terminus. It's really hard. Very complicated. And the fact that you can start.
Do you do any board games?
I'm debating because of the fact that you can do whether or not to do better than this stuff. So like,
I can even go bring it back.
I've never played it.
I'm only playing
So I'm probably going to do a promo event for it. We have two guys.
yeah. It's not much of that. Like, short up, like,
There is a traditional draft.
Although I heard like you have to
yeah.
I was like, oh, well, that's fine. A week later, after Jefferson was gone,
This is not fun.
we will not have a new band. Or we're having a new band.
Reserve the right to do something.
Because they don't like to they didn't want to make a evaded restricted. They didn't want to do an emergency ban, so that's why they're doing that. I mean, to be fair, I hope that they ban Golos. Not Golos. I hope they ban Field and Ando because the rest of the format.
What?
The card is absolutely miserable to play against every single time.
You know what's great though about Odo and the Scions also to a certain extent? Being accessory damage. You know that 5 damage spell that
Yeah, and that doesn't kill them because they have 6 loyalty.
either of them?
Hey, maybe they'll make an errata and be like, you can respond to one blockers up to before they plus. That would be real. But like, the design is fun, but it's absolutely terrible. Like, I did not like any of the inputs. Eric is unbeatable, unlimited, and Odo is
Soldiers and flowers.
Shall we try the contrast paint? I think we should. Let's give it a go. What can it harm? I mean, worst comes to worst, I paint over it. I do like how the fabric on her dress looks. That's neat stuff. We're just gonna let her dry, I think. I hate shading white. If this makes it even remotely easier, I am all in. All right. I think I need to finish up soon because my eyes are definitely not thrilled with me right now. They're not like focusing on the really small details, which isn't great. But I'm really hopeful that I will be done with these in a couple of weeks. Not having to look up tons of reference info saves me an enormous amount of time when it comes to painting. The first pass with a set of figures for me is always going to take a lot more. It's always going to take more time for me because I'm always going to be looking up reference info, like reference pictures.
Keep your combat notes as part of your library during my turn.
Look at that. I am going to want to like highlight some, but man, that looks real good. Oh, I'm so happy. Like I'm going to have to do all the like detail work that I did on this, like the zippers and stuff. And maybe do some highlighting, but she is largely good. Oh, that's exciting. I don't know how to explain how happy I am about that. You believed in me from the start. I appreciate that. So Pi, did you hear my query regarding Yuletide stuff? I don't like that. So they are in like the last round of clarifications now and queries, and I have not seen Corpline show up on any of those posts. So I think they're probably getting close to done, which means you could probably check your nominations and see if they all got through, because I suspect they did. Yeah, I think I have to leave her dress without like a pattern on it. It's too small and it would just get real busy. I may end up wanting her leggings to be darker, but we'll see. But I think she's looking real good. I'm going to text my husband and tell him that I am pretty much done for the day. My eyes can't take a whole lot more, so... My suspicion is, Pi, that all your stuff made it through. Because otherwise it would have been... Like, there's no good reason for it not to, unless they couldn't find information on it. Because it definitely doesn't have any, like, existing... It's not over the threshold for the swap. So it would have been like a, please clarify who you mean by sort of deal. My guess is there's no problem with that. Hey!
Are you talking to the person who has raised the most money for our Extra Life so far?
I can't hear you. What was that?
You're talking to the person who's raised the most money for Extra Life so far?
Yeah! Thank you, Pi.
As a member of our team?
So I got a lot done today, and I'm pretty proud of it. I sealed the base game figures for my friend Sarah's copy of Highlander. I started work on the expansion, her copy of the expansion, and I got all of the Dark Crystal figures sealed up and done. They are finished, sealed.
Given away during Extra Life.
Yeah, ready to be an Extra Life prize. I'm really pleased with how these came out. I think they look exactly the way I wanted them to. So I am quite pleased with them. Yeah, you are a winner at the donation getting. You have done a wonderful job. We appreciate that. Yeah, it was approved. That's exciting. I didn't think it, I was pretty sure it would go through. But I am glad that it is officially approved. And yeah, exciting. So yeah, these are done.
Yeah.
They are ready.
Somebody's going to win them.
Yeah, someone's going to win them. Could be you. Yeah, the sealant worked out nicely. It's all dry.
Didn't bubble or anything?
Nope.
Excellent.
So we are good. They are ready. They are done. So thank you for joining me. Thank you, Pi, for hanging out. And Sphere Song's already left, but it was really fun having y'all in chat. And I will talk to you online some other time. And for anyone watching this who wasn't chatting, that's totally cool. Hopefully you'll join us another time. And anyone watching the YouTube or the VOD, thank you for watching. And we will hopefully see you next time. Bye.